I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. My guest today is Charlie Hoch. Charlie comes to us as a brand spanking new, just been birthed Vistage chair that is actually in the process of starting his own group, like his first group. So the whole thing about starting the first group has been a big topic on this podcast, and for the first time, we're actually talking to somebody who is going through that process as we speak. So, welcome, Charlie.
Thank you.
So, Charlie comes with a variety of experience. He also happens to be the cousin of one of my best friends. So I like Charlie for that. But otherwise, you've had a long career in logistics. You were a Marine Corps officer. What was the path that led you from those things to now being a Vistage chair? What was your first career like?
Yeah, so the first career was a Marine Corps officer. I graduated from Marquette University and joined the Marine Corps, and I was an air defense officer. So all over the West Coast and the Pacific was a great time. But what you learn as a young Marine Corps officer in your early 20s is the core of leadership and what it really means, especially if you're adapting to being a humble servant, yet being very firm and fair. So all of the leadership qualities that you start to learn. You don't perfect them in the first 5 or 6 years of being a military officer. You just start to get to experience it in high
Right.
doses, right? So you learn what it means to be a leader, both through direct leadership, influential leadership, how to delegate, how to take, in today's words, take feedback and give feedback in the most critical ways. Sometimes it's dispensed upon you in ways that you never thought were possible, but we'll go into some of those stories a little bit later if you want. So you
Well,
really learn how to.
I feel like we have to pull that string. What's how did what is an
uh,
unexpected way that you received feedback as a Marine officer?
okay, so this is a good story. You'll like this. I was probably less than a year and a half into my career. We were doing a unit deployment, and we were on an island in the middle of nowhere. And I was the officer in charge, and I had a sergeant major, a very senior enlisted man who actually had spent time in the Korean War at the end. So that gives you a little bit of longevity of this man,
Oh
and
wow.
things were not going well. Um, we were not on time. Things were. I won't go into that much detail, but it was what we call a yard sale, right? You can picture a yard sale, and so I'm standing there observing this, knowing full well that I'm in failure mode, and the sergeant major walks up and he puts his arm around me, and he's got a southern drawl, and he says, "Lieutenant, do you know what the first step of every problem is?" And I said, "Of course, no, Sergeant Major, I don't." He goes, "The first rule of every problem is don't make it worse." And then he looks at me and he goes, "Son, put the shovel down, stop digging the hole." And then he just like walks away. And I'm like,
And that's
wow,
all you get.
okay.
All right.
And so that's all you get. But you're like, I didn't know I was making the problem worse. I just knew I had a problem, and I needed somebody to walk up and sort of punch me in the mouth and say, just stop making it worse, right? Uh, so that was a very enjoyable moment, humbling, but
Right.
enjoyable moment.
So, what does an air defense officer actually do, by the way?
Well, it creates and protects vital areas that are on the ground. It's a little bit it's far different now than it was, 35, 36 years ago when I was on active duty. So you basically have an area that you need to protect, call it the southern one third or the southern quarter of the United States, and you have to create what's called integrated air defense systems using fighter aircraft, missile defense zones, all the way down to shoulder fired missiles. In other words, you got to protect a certain area. And if people have been watching the last 10 to 15 years of aggressive behavior across the world, where call it skirmishes, conflicts, or wars get started, the very first target of anything is usually the air defense system. So, air defense plays a pretty vital role in the protection of very important things. And so, you create these air defense systems to protect vital areas, essentially.
Very interesting. So, okay, so you're a Marine officer. You learned about not making it worse. Where do you go from there?
So I had a history of paper makers in my family, and so when I left active duty, I got into making paper, and I worked for a couple of small paper companies, and I was a sales guy. Pick up the price book, put it in your bag, and you're beating the street selling paper to printers. And from there, you really learn sort of perseverance in the business world. You learn perseverance and making sure that you don't give up, and having an ethos of never giving up. It kind of came naturally, right? And so then you advance and you get into marketing and operations and things of this nature, and you start to advance because that's why a company really hires a junior military officer, is to kind of go through those steps. So you advance and then you move to another company and so on and so forth, and you start gaining all sorts of experience until I landed in Memphis in early 2002, with my newly adopted twin kids and my wife, thinking that this was going to be a 2-year stint, right? Hey, honey, let's go to Memphis out of Wisconsin. We'll give it 2 years. We'll see how it goes. Well, what are we, 23, 24 years later? And we're staring at what has been a tremendous opportunity with international paper through a ton of jobs. And I've recently retired from international paper at the end of last year, beginning of this. But where I ended my spate was in the leadership development space. Yeah, sales guy ending up in HR. I hear the jokes all the time. So uh, yeah, I ended up in the leadership space with executive development and sales training, and it was a great corporate career. And then I wanted to go do my own thing, and then this is how the Vistage opportunity presented itself to me.
Now, really quickly, I think the people are going to want to know how much when you're the paper salesman, how much like being Jim on The Office was it? Was is the show basically a documentary of your time, or what is that job
Oh,
actually like?
the funny thing is like there is a whole lot more reality to the Jim character than people may realize. Um, but there really weren't some of the Michael people, although
Gotcha.
somebody might say, Charlie, yeah, there are. You just weren't looking for them. But the
or
Jim
or or
characters, there
or,
were,
or you were Michael.
and I just don't want to admit it.
um, but no. Anyway, very cool. So you decide that you want to continue on your path of basically being in leadership development, and that leads you to to Vistage. What was that like? How did you get hooked up with Vistage?
Oh, very interesting. A shout out to Mike Raymond, who was my recruiter. I had started Nexus Business Advisors, which is my own company, and they reached out to me I had no idea that even Vistage was around. Having been in the corporate leadership development space, I was shocked that I hadn't investigated Vistage before for people in my company,
Sure.
and it kind of came out of the blue. But it was very encouraging right off the bat. I knew that's what I wanted to do. It didn't take a lot of convincing. I believe in the Vistage model because it is so behavioral science based on how to actually help people make better decisions. It's what I really wanted to base my company off of. And so, what was really interesting is how quickly it came together. So, think, we started talking in February, March. Hey, let's get to your academy in May. Great, you're in May. Let's get into the build phase. I'm one of these folks that likes to have, you know, the process, get on it, start doing it, and do it as well as you can. So that
What
was
was
essentially
the
how it came to be.
what was the and talking to you as somebody where it's obviously super fresh in your mind. What was the academy experience like for you?
It was really top notch. I mean, Eric, if for those that have been through it and maybe been through other training type things, the academy staff is exemplary, and I've seen and hired many training and development people across my tenure. I would put them at the very top. Very thorough, very to the point. Reinforcement of what you learned is a core tenet. And so you're constantly practicing that which is taught. And it's very, very effective.
Awesome. So now we get to it.
Okay.
You you have you have made the decision that you want to be a Vistage chair. You've gone through academy, you had a good experience, you come out of it, and now obviously reality sets in a little bit and you've got a very tough job to do. What's that been like for you on the day to day? How have you made this transition into uh, essentially you get all the fun stuff and now it's like boom, I got to build a group.
I mean, it is difficult, right? So coming out of academy, they're going to say this is one of the hardest things that you'll ever do in a professional career. And to some extent, that's true. But again, what they teach you is a mindset, right? And that is get out there, understand the mindset. And my mindset hasn't really changed since early 20s, and that is I am going to progress through this. My DNA doesn't allow me to be lazy, not accomplish things. And so the build phase has a process, but yet it's very adaptable, right? When you leave Chair Academy, they're like, hey, here's the process. Here are things that we call scripts. These are the steps that you take. And if you honor those steps, but make them your own, right? And do things a little bit outside of the boundaries maybe that you've been taught based on the receptivity of the client that you're looking to partner with. Like one of the things that I do, and I've been very successful at it in my build, is one of the first things I say to people is this is not a sale. I am not selling you anything. So you go through a disarming process that basically says, hey, this is something for you. And if you're interested in helping yourself, being a Vistage CEO and a member in a peer advisory group, there are tens of thousands of them that have found tremendous value. The length of stay is beyond 7 years in a CE group. Like it's gone for decades and decades. So I don't have to prove anything to you. What I need to engage with you is in a discussion on where you are on your leadership journey, and do you want to continue to improve yourself? Right. So this is not a sell. And what's interesting is when I'm that transparent, um, it's a disarming effect. I've had three people go, "Oh, okay, well, that's a different conversation." And then you talk about them and where they are, what they want to achieve. And so chairs usually say things like, hey, Um, Tell them your why. Why are you doing this as a chair, Charlie? And my why is very simple, right? I have a reputation of over the decades of my career of being an oversimplifier, taking something complex and making it very, very simple. And so here's my why. I want to have a passion to help leaders make better decisions. Period. That's it. Which is not to say that they're making poor decisions. It's to say, I want to help you wherever you are today. Where is your here and where is your beyond here going?
Do you tell
Not
them about the shovel
necessarily
thing?
the
Have
this
you
is
tried that?
um I have told one person in my build that story because they themselves were currently in a problem, and so as we were diagnosing a challenge that they face and how a group might help them, they had asked me, hey, had you had a problem? And I said, oh yeah. And so I used that same example. Eric, I was 20, that was in 1992. So I was what, 24, 25. Um, now I'm staring at 58 and it's a completely different perspective.
Um, there are actually I found in doing this that there are a lot of Vistage chairs who have military background, and I'm curious about your perspective on how those things interconnect because I've talked to I've talked to a lot of chairs that have either served in the military for a relatively short time like you did, either as an officer or even just enlisted. Um, and there are also plenty of folks who have long and very long military careers. But is there a thing in your mind about the connection between your military experience and your ability to do this now?
It's a great question, and I'll answer it from this bias or perspective, and that is I can only answer for myself, but there are a lot of people that are like me, right? But I'll give you the answer from myself, and that is um, I walk this planet trying to be as authentic, real, transparent, fair, firm, in anything that I do, whether it's be a parent, whether it's be a leader in a work environment, run my own company. And those ethics, those characteristics, right, come from a crucible of building someone in the military. And once those are forged, they're not going away. They're not. And someone like me, they're not. And so that is a transferable thing that I will take in any endeavor that I do, professionally or personally. And so as I step into the professional world, you can see it. There's a level of confidence. There is a level of initiative. There is, I mean, this is a blast for me. This is the funnest job, Eric, I have ever had, and I haven't even built a team yet. I haven't even built a group yet. But this is literally the funnest job I've ever done. And
And you're saying that now in the part that's supposed to be the hardest thing you've ever done.
yeah, which I mean, I want to respect everybody's feelings. I am who I am, and I love what the process that I've been able to create, right? It's not the exact process that, Chair Academy says, here, go henceforth and do these 10 things every single day. I use like seven of them and I adapt. But just for someone like me, my personality and my experience, I want to bring that to people who wants to better themselves. And so whether it's a $10 million company or I'm talking with, a number two at a $7 billion company, it doesn't matter, right? All of these people, no matter what their level of responsibility, whether it be revenue or number of people, They're all the same people, Eric. They all filter and make decisions the same way. They feel the same pressure. Um, Dollars and number of people doesn't necessarily translate to more stress or poor decisions or difficulty making decisions. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. So I don't, I mean, I disarm myself to some extent and say, look, this is just a really fun job, Charlie. Go out and do it. I mean, this is why retired from the corporate world and you want to go do your own thing.
What's been the what has been so I'll ask it from two perspectives. What has been for you the hardest thing so far about going through this process? But then what's been the most sort of pleasant surprise as you've gone through this process of trying to build your group?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would answer the first part by saying this. Um, One, I'm a confident person. I see things for what they really are. So when I'm talking to either a CEO or a business leader, and they're saying things like, "Charlie, I don't need this. This isn't really important." And I look across their business and I look at how they're reacting. I'm almost like, "Oh man, you need it more. You need it more than anybody." But again, my job isn't to sell you on this. If you can't recognize it and want it, then you're not going to be a good fit for my group anyway. So the hardest thing is watching somebody struggle with where they think or reality or where they really have challenges and they can't clearly see them. And it's not my job to then step in and make them see it, right? It's like, do you see it? Do you understand? And if they're like, no, well, then I just casually move on to somebody else, wish them the best of luck, because that's exactly what I want them to do is succeed. But if they can't see it, that's difficult for me to see, right? It's like, oh, buddy, you could so use this. And they just say, no, okay, maybe later. Um, and then the most pleasant thing that I've experienced is I didn't think my referral network outside of a Fortune 500 company would be so excited to help me. Right? I've got several people in the banking industry, the real estate industry, at the chambers of commerce, and things of this nature. Where they're like, hey, we want to help you. We want to help you. We want to introduce you. And so there is this referral network that I had no idea existed, and it's just such a joy to see people um, help me in a new endeavor, right? I kind of feel like a little bit of an old fossil
Sure.
starting a new thing at a later stage in life or career, but people so much willing to say, "Yeah, let me help you out." Wow, I thought I was gonna have to do this all on my own. So that's how I'd answer that question.
No, that's great, and I appreciate that. Um, you're obviously you're obviously fully into this, and that's really cool to see. And you're you've got a terrific attitude about this. What is your what are you feeling like right now? Is like what's your prognosis on how this is going to turn out?
So I'll give you some numbers, right? I'm a realist. I've got about 7 to 8 people who are interested, that are, let's just say, in quotes, close to signing. Um, I see about 6 of those people committing in the next, call it 2 to 3 weeks. I'm going to have my meeting experience event at the end of September where I'm going to invite these people. I expect them to come. Um, and this is a first group, right? There is no comparison that these people get to see other than me now doing the build and the meeting experience. So there's a little bit of a leap of faith for everybody. Me as the chair, them as a first time charter member of a new group. But what I'm also doing is these people also know people. And so the one
Right.
interesting thing that is available one time in a build at the start of a new group is to say, hey, Eric, you're interested in joining this group. That's great. You might know of somebody else that you could add into this group to launch and be that charter member, right? And so now these people are thinking outside of themselves to say, who else would I want in that group to start this? And it's been really refreshing to get some feedback from them to say, hey, I know two or three people. Obviously, they have to be from non-competing industries, and I, as the chair, have to select them, right? They have to be right for this group because I'm seeing all the prospective candidates, and this candidate is only seeing themselves. So that's a long way of saying I get a lot of help in building my group, and I basically see this thing launching sometime in the October, November timeframe. And I want to build it up to about 12 to 15 members. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I just feel so blessed and privileged to be able to have this.
Well, that's I love your attitude. It's really nice to see. Hey, this has been a lot of fun. If folks want to get in touch with you, if they have questions about Vistage, questions about uh, joining a group, questions about what they should be doing with their shovel, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I very much like everybody else live and breathe by, these iPhones, or phones. So email, phone, ready and willing to able to answer anybody's questions about anything.
Cool, and we'll have those, and we'll have all of that contact information for you in the show notes that we post on Spotify and iTunes and all that good stuff. Charlie, thank you so much for being a great guest.
Thanks very much, Eric. Take care, buddy.
You got it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.